I'm Camille Moore, and I'm here today with Sandra Wilson, the author of This Masquerade, The True Story. And I want to thank you for being here with me today. And I want to ask you a few questions about your book.
Thank you, Camille. I'm glad to be here.
So, I want to talk to you a little bit about your life and what inspired you to write this book.
Well, I think, I had a relationship with my second husband, and that was the inspiration to write the book in the first place. But I also wanted to write a movie script and make this out of a movie. But my husband at the time told me it would be better if I had a book, so I wrote the book first. So that was the inspiration. But of course, my life with my second husband, Gino, was the inspiration and what we went through.
Okay. And so the process of organizing and structuring your memoir, it sounds like you said you mentioned your second husband and you wrote it as you experienced his experiences. What else was things that you found were challenging or that were hard when you're writing your book?
There was a lot that was really hard about the book because it went through a lot of trials and tribulations. It was a very difficult life, but one that a lot of women can parallel. But it was very emotional, and it was like therapy, actually, going through this book and writing and rewriting. I had to write down details of the emotions I felt. I had to feel the emotions of what I wrote so I could put them into words. And so it was an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, I know that I, having just met you and spending time with you, would have never known what you had faced and the things that you had been through. I didn't know until I read the book. It's a bit how you present yourself now is you've overcome and you're on the other side, and to understand what you really experienced, you need to read your story, because otherwise you just have no idea.
Right, you can't always judge a book by its cover, because if you looked at me, you would never think that I went through all these things and got mixed up with a person who had such a shady past. But people get entangled with people that they shouldn't. They fall in love very quickly before they even get to know them. And the next thing you know, you've had a child or two and you're pretty much stuck in that relationship. It's not that easy to get out of a lot of these types of relationships.
Yes, I can relate to that quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so how did you balance the being honest about your experiences and the authenticity with trying not to hurt people with information, and trying to protect their privacy?
Well, I have a disclaimer in the book that states I did change some locations, some people's names to protect them, but I felt like it was my duty not to expose people that were involved in this book, because of the fact that there was some private, somewhat dangerous incidences that are mentioned in this book that I didn't want to reveal their true identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really did try to not reveal. I put the basic people, their real names, and some of the locations are real, some are not, but I just felt that it was, my job to protect anybody from feeling that they were, exposed.
Right, so that came into your decision-making process of
Yes.
what to leave in and what to leave out.
Right.
I know your kids, some of your kids' experiences were some of the things you decided to keep out to protect them.
Yes, yes. I did take things out of the book that I just didn't want to share about my kids. There was a lot more in the book that I could have written, but I had so many words in there. The book is pretty long as it is, and I think I had it way longer, and I just streamlined it and cut it put in some things, but then took out some other things, especially about my kids, that I didn't want people to know.
Yeah, and I know some people might ask you now, like, how are your kids now? Are they doing? How did this experience for them affect their lives? And how are I feel like knowing you, I feel like your kids are doing pretty good now, and you're a good mother. You've done a lot to show up for them now. And
yes, I think everybody was a mess once my ex-husband had passed away, and my son and I reunited, and my daughter was pretty much a mess, and I think we all decided to get help. I did, especially because I didn't really realize what had happened to me. When you live in this type of trauma, you don't always know that it is conditioning you into an abnormal state. So you don't even know what normal was before, because my normal was gone, and it was a new normal with Gino, because I'd lived with him over 10 years. So I had to decompress, and I think for me, I needed to find out who I was, and I wanted all kinds of self-help, because I needed that validation of finding help for me, because I didn't know what normal was, and so I got back on track. And I think for me, doing that helped my kids to follow in those steps. And so my kids definitely were affected, but we're doing really well now. Everything is so much better, but it's taken many, many years to get there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking, that sounds like there's several challenging things. Obviously, the experiences, the effect on y'all's lives and everything. But what do you feel like is one of, or the most challenging part of writing this book?
I think the emotional part, of course, was the worst. Because, like I said, I had to go through and visualize in my head, I'm in this situation, and had to write it down. And a lot of times I would just lay my head down and just cry. And, when you're a writer, you write and rewrite, and you think you'll get used to it, but you don't, because those are certain parts of this book just make me cry. And even today, as many times as I've read it, I still cry. So, it's still a touchy subject. But I would say, really the whole book, it has so much emotion, ups and downs. It's a roller coaster ride, but, it's about my life. And I'm not living that life now. And I can read and I can cry, but I can come out of it, where before it was hard for me to even come out of it. So you want to always go forward, not backwards. But I feel like that I explained in my book my feelings to a great degree.
And I can also relate to what you're saying, because when I read it, it brought up a lot of raw stuff for me too. So I can see how you're saying that there's the part of having that rawness with that emotion, and you think you're over something, or you think that you're going to deal with it differently, and when it gets brought back up, it affects you. And I know for me, it affected me. I was surprised how much it affected me, and I had to take time to kind of process my own experiences that were similar to yours. And so, yeah, I can see how the emotional part of that would be very challenging.
Yeah, it was, yeah. But we overcome, and we go forward in our life. But I wrote this book because I felt like a lot of people could relate to it. It's a unique story because of the fact that I was a singer. A lot of people are not singers that go through this, that write books. I mean, I don't think so, but I wanted to share the book so that people would understand that it's okay that you went through things, but you got to get up and go. You got to get better and get some help. And don't think that if you're going to overcome it by just ignoring those emotions that keep coming up, because that's what emotions do. They have to be dealt with. And I know for myself, I was an emotional wreck after all of this, but I'm so much better today than I ever was back then. Of course, I'm a lot older now, but it's still, you have to get help for yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of transitions us into something, the fun part of it. So you were singing and you were traveling, you were on the road, and so you're living the rock star life with like the fashion side of it. And so I know that I related to that because I also lived in Seattle, and so that was very interesting to me. And so what are some things that you look back on and you remember the fun and feel the fun in it?
Well, I can tell you that I love to sing, but the fashion part of it was absolutely fantastic, because when I first started singing, Pat Benatar in 1979 came out with her first album, and of course everybody went crazy over her, and we learned I don't know how many songs off her first and second album. And she was a lot of fun to do because she wore the spandex, and I was thinner than I am. I mean, I'm a thin person, but I was smaller, probably a 0 back then. And I loved the spandex, so I found spandex from the ankles up all the way, and got my hair all big, and just loved the clothes part of the rock and roll circuit. And I bought a lot of clothes and did a lot of hunting for fashion. I loved the singing. I loved the, my ex-husband Gino, he would put a magenta light on me. I had to stand on stage, and he would put a magenta light on me. He would, we would do a sound check. We were always, rehearsing, and no matter what it was, I had waited a long time to do this. And it was just so fabulous. I just can't even explain it. I had finally come to my dream of probably the 4th grade of singing in a band, and here I was actually doing it. So it's pretty wild,
Yeah.
We had groupies, and people were asking me for my autograph, and I mean, it was everything that I wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the part I loved. And I loved the traveling. I sang 6 nights a week. I sang 30 songs a night. 6 nights a week. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I did everything I could to keep myself healthy, because in Canada it's very dry, and so we would go up in the mountains, and gosh, I would lose my voice. I'd be so scared, because I was scared I was going to let the band down, because I was the one singing most of the songs. We wouldn't be able to go on unless it was for me. And so I did everything I could to stay healthy. And it was hard because a lot of people took drugs. And I can remember one incident, I think I put it in the book, where this woman grabbed my arm and she said, "Come with me." So she took me into the restroom, into one of the stalls, and pulled out some cocaine. She said, "Here, I want you to snort this." And I was like, okay. And I did it, but it messed me up the rest of the night. It was hard to remember words, being high, because I wanted to be the best. I didn't want, anything to make me not be perfect for people to come to see me. So, yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
And I know that you mentioned even the kids really liked it, being on, traveling and doing helping you set up with your set and different things.
Yeah, both kids said that their favorite time was being on the road.
Yeah.
Because they were our roadies, they helped carry the equipment, they helped take it back in, and, they got to see Canada at, I mean, they were supposed to be in school at some parts of it, but they got to travel a lot to see real live moose and deer and every kind of animal in Canada there is. And then the first time we ever had salmon was in Seattle. That's the first time I ever had salmon. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was really awesome. So they really enjoyed it, and we did a lot of fun things.
Okay. So if someone was to come to you and say, "Well, I'm thinking about writing a memoir," what would be some advice you would have for them be?
Well, I think the way that I did it was after the situation with my ex-husband, I wrote an outline of all the instances that happened over the course of 10 or 11 years. And I kept that piece of paper. I probably have lost most everything because I've moved so many times, but I did keep that one piece of paper until I started writing. And I'd use that outline. But I would suggest an outline first of where you want to start in your memoir. Do you want to start at maybe your grandmother's funeral, or do you want to start it and go back to when you first recognized your grandmother, or if you wanted to talk about your husband, or maybe when you first met, or how you met, and then just sit down and just kind of in your mind, kind of just write down everything that you can remember, and then go back and just keep going over it and over. Oh yeah, I remember this, because that's what I did. Oh, I remember we did this and we did that. And you start thinking up all these things that will come in your head when you're writing. That's the wonderful thing about writing, is that you think you have it done, you don't, because more things come up. So it is, I would inspire anybody that wants to write, because it is absolutely a great thing to do. It really is good therapy. Even if it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. If it's funny, it's still good therapy to just write down your thoughts.
Is there anything else you want to share with us about your book?
I think that the reason that I wrote this book, one of the reasons I would say, is because I needed to get over a lot, and I feel like that Jesus was with me the whole time. He really gave me nudgings that I may have ignored at the time because I wasn't thinking about him. But certainly today I am more cognitive of his surroundings and his blessings. I've changed so much as a person. And I think that if you don't have Jesus in your life, you're really missing out on the blessings he's going to give you. Because when you write a book, you're always asking, what can I do? What can I put in this book? What have I forgotten? And I will tell you this, I wrote all the time, sometimes 8 hours straight. And it would be daytime, and I would look up and it was nighttime. That's how much I had written, and I wasn't even conscious of what was going on around me. But God was blessing me even then, because I would look at what I was writing and I said, did I write that? Honestly, I did not know that I had written that. So he was helping me.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we got an earthquake. But but anyway, yeah. I mean, I hope you buy the book. This is this Masquerade. I do have it in Main Street Emporium in downtown Roy City. I have it in Charlie's Emporium that's in Roy City, and also Charlie's did I say Emporium? I meant Charlie's Hamburgers in Farmersville. And then I will have it in more places. And of course, it's on Amazon.com, and you can find it on there in paperback or in Kindle. So I hope you have a chance to read about my unique story that I find a little incredible, that I even went through it.
Yeah.
And lived.
Yes. Yeah, it's
and
quite
lived.
an amazing story.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some goals that you have now? I see you creating groups and involving women in things that can help enrich their lives. And so I know that that's something that you're doing. And what are some other goals around that, or some other goals that you have now that you're done writing your book?
Well, I have a lot of different ideas of what I want to do. I'm right now writing the movie script of the book, which is something that I started out doing first, and now I'm doing it last, but that's okay. I'm 8 pages in on the movie script, so I'm getting there. And then when I get that done, I may send that to some people. I've already sent my book to Reese Witherspoon, I may send the screenplay also to her. I may enter into contests.
Okay.
So you can enter screenplays and also books, which I've also seen. I go to conferences. I'll be going to book conferences, and then I have a women's over 50 group. It's called Royce City Women for Support and Friendship over 50, and we have a great bunch of gals that we are going to do a lot of charity work, which we already have. We're going to celebrate our first anniversary in February, and we're going to do more charities. We're going to do more for people in the Royce City area, not just Royce City, but just the surrounding areas, and do more for our community, because it's important that we do that for us to keep it good, because Royce City is a small town, so we want to keep it nice. And we've done things for the homeless and for foster children. So we're going to continue paying it forward, what I call, and doing acts of kindness. And then I've got some other groups that I'm going to be formulating too. But I'm just really happy that I get to sell this book and share a lot of secrets that I had to hold in for many, many years, being alone when I was younger and not being able to tell anybody about what was going on. And so I am now sharing all those secrets.
Well, that's an interesting point, because you created this group to support women, and you're saying that you felt like you didn't have that and that you were alone. And so that's kind of a big of the part of the purpose for your group, is to pull these women in and not to be alone.
Right, and that was the purpose for the women's group, because I had lived in uptown Dallas for 24 years, and my husband passed away, and I moved up here 2 years ago, and I didn't know anybody, and so I'm living in a town I don't know anybody. And I just got on Royce Citizen and asked some people to go to lunch, and here we are a year later, you know, with hundreds of women in my group, and it's just been absolutely God blessed.
Nice. And you guys had a fun event. Your group was at your book signing that you just had.
Oh yeah, we had at the Main Street Emporium, coffee and ice cream in downtown Royce City. I had a book signing, and we had a really good turnout, and everybody loves the book, and I'm just so grateful that you're all supporting me. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, I'd like to thank you again for being with me here today. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I know that I enjoyed reading your book, and I would highly recommend that you all go out and grab a copy of this and see what we're talking about. And thank you again, Sandra.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.